Hey folks, how y'all doing tonight? I hope everybody can hear me okay. I am in a new spot because it's raining outside and my normal live stream place in the garage, it's too noisy. There's people walking by that want to talk to me and stuff. So, well, hey, who's in here tonight? Let's see. We got a lot of people stopping by. I saw that Ivy Organic stopped by early. And let's see, Eagle Lover. Hey, you're a neighbor over on Beltway. Kite Primo, thank you for the congratulations. Mary Playford, thank you. DC, D has been a member of my channel, a subscriber for a long time. She was on some of the earliest question and answer videos. I answered a lot of her questions. Jackie H, hello from South Carolina. Consclow, is that how it's said? Yeah, thank you. It's a 200,000 subs. It's actually quite incredible to me. We have 53 folks checked in, and I'm probably going to miss saying hello to all of you. You can grow too, Karen Shields, Valerie P. I try to be down to earth, Valerie. Sometimes, sometimes I don't know. Lady Green Thumbs, Roy Soto, Karen Shields, Hot Limited, Cajun Man 99. My wife is looking in Cajun recipe books all the time these days. Splendora, Tammy. That's yeah, I've been to Splendora. Karen, Ruth, Mary, thanks. From Australia. What time is it, Mary, down there on the other side of the earth? D. Snyder from League City. My in-laws live in League City, and my wife was just over there today. Yeah, I'm gonna miss saying hello to folks because there's a lot of you flowing into here, and don't know if I can keep up. Yeah. By the way, who was it? One of my regular commenters asked me why did I have slow mode on. I turned it off. So slow mode is where if you make a comment on a live stream, then it restricts you from making another comment for 30 seconds or so. It helps to keep the information from getting too overwhelming for the streamer. But Anonymous from Melbourne, that's the other side of the world too. Robert, how you doing from South Carolina? Gardening Simplified. Gardening Simplified. I just looked at your book. Thank you. I got it the other day. Tony, your book is awesome. I especially like the chapter on reasons to garden. And yes, I'm gonna plug your book for you. If y'all don't know Tony at Simplified Gardening, go check out his YouTube channel. He sent me his book, an early copy of his book, which ironically didn't get here until it was released publicly. But I've looked it over. In fact, I was looking it over just today. YouTube police giving me a congratulations. Thank you. That's a funny username. Well, I'm seeing that we got about 80 people here tonight. Thank you for coming by. um, I'm glad you feel like my channel is worth your subscription because I know there are so many gardening channels on YouTube. You could watch anybody, and we all do watch other folks. We watch different gardening channels and learn from different folks, different things. And I never really considered myself an expert at gardening. I just started showing people what I was doing in my garden, and decided to have a YouTube channel after. Well, I had a blog, and that was back in the dark days. But I started my YouTube channel without even thinking that I was going to try to grow it and get monetized. Phoebe, if she was up here, Char 8A, I would certainly pet her for you. But you can see she is on the wall up here in my workroom. Employee of the month. But yeah, I never really thought that I was going to get into YouTubing as big. But you guys found something about my channel that you appreciated. And I've said this in all my live streams. I usually just do, hey, Jason, thank you. I usually just do the same videos each year, a fresher version of them and I make those videos with updated information as I learn more about things. And so I've actually taken down several of my older videos because I believe that their better versions are up now. So Lady Green Thumb got you started in journaling your single seed challenge. Yeah. How's y'all's seed challenge doing? Mine's actually working out. I had to plant a second time, but mine's actually working out and growing and not dying. So single seed challenge is I haven't really gone out and looked at a bunch of folks' videos. I'll be honest with you. I do that from time to time, but I haven't done that this spring yet. I've been too busy with other things. So, but I am going to go look at all your videos, and it's always fun to see how people are doing the challenge and what their seeds are. And some of you guys are picking some really weird things that I think that's awesome. I'm playing it safe this year with a pepper, and it was an old seed, but it came up. It took a while. It took about 20 days for that seed to show, but now that it's up, yeah, we're doing great. Do I ever go to meetups? No. You mean like gardening meetups or YouTuber meetups? I've never attended any gardening meetups really. Actually, I've been to an open house at a citrus grower in Lake Jackson, Texas, where I bought some citrus trees and had a great time. And I actually met some of you guys that view my channel. Um, but as far as YouTube people, I've linked up with a couple of YouTubers. I visited David the Good when he lived in Florida. I mean Alabama, at the second to the last place he's been at. Rachel at Oxheart Gardening has been to my garden twice, and I've done live streams or been on with Gardener Scott twice, and with Ultimate Gardening just recently, just a couple of weeks ago. Enoch over there had me on his show, and yeah, it's nice to meet up with fellow gardeners. I was asked a question if I have people to my garden, if you're in the area, can you stop by? I'm an introvert like that, and it's usually not a good time to stop by. But I do like, if there's a planned thing out there somewhere, yeah, I don't I wouldn't not go to it. So let's see. I'm trying to catch up on everything. James and Jessica in Pearland, Texas. What part of Pearland? I discovered Joseph's Nursery over in Pearland just about 2 months ago. I'd never been there, and I went over there, and man, they drive you around in golf carts. It's so big. Pearland. Yeah, that's the Pearland is the next city kind of north and west of me. Pearland is bigger than where I live. I live in Friendswood, Texas, which is a little Quaker settlement that has grown into like a little suburb of the city of Houston. And it still has a small town feel, but every bit of land's getting built on these days. Ed, all right, your grandson Asher's 20 months old. Awesome. Is it okay to put pine cones in the compost bed? Jackie, yeah, it generally is. Pine cones do store up a lot of resin, pine resin, which can be acidic. But if you let that compost down, it should be fine. I would not just fill the whole thing up with pine cones, but yeah, certainly you can. Once they've gone dry and all that resin is dried up and the aromatics have evaporated out, it should be fine. So yeah. Okay, Larry from Northeast Florida, Northeast. So that's like Jacksonville-ish, or am I thinking all wrong? My wife went to Jacksonville once by accident. I hope she's not watching. I won't tell the story. Let's see. Cabbage for a single seed challenge. Yeah, that's awesome. Brassicas. If you're having autumn right now, that's a great choice. I can't grow brassicas in the spring. I have to grow them over the winter. I start them around October. So, yeah, if y'all have any gardening questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't always have the answer because, like I said, I'm really not an expert in other than what I actually do in my backyard. Mm, dry protoss. Any recommendation for acidifying a big 30-gallon pot? Got a small lemon tree and it wasn't planted in acidic soils. No, I don't think you even really need to. If you want to up your acid a little bit, there are ways to do it, but citrus will grow in a neutral soil. Citrus will grow just about anything. I've got slightly alkaline soil in my backyard, and my Meyer lemon tree loves it. So I don't know that I would um, really worry too much about it. So yeah, put your mind at ease unless it starts giving you signs that it's struggling in there. Yeah. When I planted okra last year in those 4 square pots, yeah, that was about 3 years ago. How was the yield? I got more okra than I could eat, and I'm the only one in my house that eats okra, so it worked out just fine. That was a pretty good stand. Together, those pots formed about a 4 by 4 bed, and I had 4 plants in each pot, so that was 16 plants, and that was more than enough okra. In fact, I had tons of okra that year. Yeah, the cemetery is the only land left on 518 Eagle Over, Texas. Yeah, this city's growing, that's for sure. Single seed challenge twins. No, you're not breaking the rules if you put 1 seed in, but, the rules are made to be bent, I think. So, any plans for you to tour your neighbor's African garden? You can grow too. Yes. If you guys have never followed, um, Yaje, what's her channel name? Anyway, I'll look it up and put it in this. I've got an African neighbor from Cameroon, and she grows about 4 houses down from me and has a YouTube channel about growing these African foods. And yes, I do plan to tour her garden. We had it planned last year, but it just never happened. It rained when we were going to try. And right now is early spring. I'd like to go when it's lush, so maybe next month or two. But yeah, she's got some fascinating things. Uh, Yaje, Yajengala. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not going to try to. I'll butcher it, but she's got a good channel. Um, let's see. Do you have any experience with comfrey? I don't have any experience with comfrey. I've never been able to get it to grow here. I'm not sure that it's me or the climate. Robert asked, "What overnight temps are good for planting potatoes in pots?" Again, there's something I'm not an expert in gardening. I don't know that one because I've only grown potatoes once. I grow sweet potatoes a lot, but I try to grow things that are really, really perfect for my area. And potatoes have never been one of them that I've had success with. And when I did grow potatoes in pots, I had a virus and they came out looking like golf balls. So that was no fun. Northwest Columbia, green sweep, welcome. Let's see. I'm trying to find some questions. What's a minimum size gallon container for a beefsteak tomato like a Kellogg's would you recommend? I'd go as big as you can get. I've grown big giant beefsteak tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets before, but that turns out to be insufficient. And I find that when summer comes, I'm watering twice a day because that sample size of soil is so small and the plant gets so huge that it just zaps the water out of the soil really quick. So the larger, the better. I'd go for something like a 20-gallon pot as a minimum for a big tomato plant. Any kind of large indeterminate that you're going to try to grow and let it vine and it's because those indeterminates, man, they get huge. You grow comfrey in pots. That's probably a good option. Lanny Lancaster, yes, I am familiar with the dwarf tomato project. In fact, I grew some dwarf tomatoes about 3 years ago, and they did really well. They were fun to grow. We had pestilence that year, so I lost some of them, but they're fun to grow. And I got my dwarf tomato project seeds at Tomato Fest, which I had never heard of until that year when I looked them up, and I haven't ordered from them since, but I mean that's where they had the seeds. So um, dwarf tomato project, yes, very fun. That's good info, Kvisons. Yeah, these dwarf tomatoes, some of them were like marbles. They were so small, and they were really, really maybe, almost translucent like glass, some of them. They were really nice. Yes, we could probably grow a lot more unique plants here you can grow too. You could probably get all I could probably grow all kinds of crazy stuff that I've just never tried. But again, I have such a small garden, and I try to grow a lot of what I grow, I try to grow with regard to what's popular to grow and what I can teach because, well, you also YouTube is part of my gardening reality now too. So I do sometimes grow for YouTube something that I've grown 100 times and haven't branched out. But I have started with all the fruit trees and things that I'm growing. I have started a little bit different. The thing about my backyard orchard culture and the fruit trees that I've been growing is there's not a lot of people really, really interested in that so much as they are people who want to grow tomatoes and beans, gardening. And that's understood. I mean, not everybody has a place to put a bunch of fruit trees. They're long-term projects, but they're so rewarding. It's actually the most rewarding thing I've done in a long time, and I'm really enjoying the fruit trees. Let's see. I'm seeing some new folks come in. 6 varieties from Victory Seed Company. That's a good place to get dwarfs. I might look at them. Hey there, hippie girl. I've got 2 cherry tomato plants in right now too. That's, Cherokee tomatoes. That's, actually one of my favorite varieties. Baker Creek and Botanical Interests are both awesome. Botanical Interests is awesome because they value good design and their seed packets are awesome. You get information on the front, back, and on the inside. So I love those. I love the attention to detail with a seed company that's willing to go to those ends. Um, how do I keep critters from eating my figs? Um, the biggest fig thieves around here is my dog. She'll literally hop up into the pot and reach up, and I've seen her pull a fig off the branch. So I just consider her being a taste tester. And then in my most of the figs I get, I don't really have any trouble with pests and figs, except my tree, which is out in the front yard. My neighbors come by and eat figs off my tree without asking me, and that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But when you put a tree near the sidewalk, what are you going to do? Pink brandywine, Monte McDearman. I've got a pink brandy. I've got several of those growing out in the garden. I haven't put any in the ground yet. I'm actually about a month behind on my garden because of the late freeze and a trip that I had to take up to Illinois, so I'm a little bit behind. Red Romo apple tree when you're 8 years old, 50 pies every year from that thing. That's awesome. That's cool. Tip for fabric pot growers. Jason at Green Country Agroforestry knows his stuff, and if you're not following his channel, go check it out. Jason, I just saw you do that video where you doubled your soil by essentially double digging and then using mulch and organic material in the pathway to make more soil. And immediately after I watched your video, somebody asked a question on my channel saying, why do you mow the grass in your paths? Doesn't it throw weeds and stuff all up in your garden?" I thought, I should just do what Jason just did and fill my paths in with 6 inches of wood chips and just let that rot down. That's a brilliant idea, Jason. I appreciated that video. Monty McDermott. I can't really grow broccoli. I've tried. I can grow cauliflower and all other brassicas. I can even grow Brussels sprouts, but I've never successfully grown a head of broccoli. So yeah, the late freezes were horrible, Roy. We got down to, let's see, we had a freeze 2 years ago that knocked my lemon tree all the way back to the ground. And it got down to 17 degrees Fahrenheit here, which is unheard of. But it stayed there. It stayed below freezing for, like a week and a half. And that's what really killed everything. And well, that lemon tree grew back and we recovered a bit. Then this year we had a late freeze and it got down I guess it got down to about 18 or 17 here, but it didn't stay there very long. It was long enough to kill the citrus tree again. But she's coming back. Cardboard's yeah, gardening happens. I've used cardboard as mulch. I haven't covered paths with it, but it's the same idea. So hey, I just wanted now that we've got a bunch of people here, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your subscriptions and your views. And most of all, when I see names that I recognize, I know, okay, you've engaged in the comment section, and I love that. Sometimes folks will hunt me up on Facebook and send me questions on Facebook Messenger or on Instagram, and that's fine. But I mean, it would be so much better if you would just leave your question on a video, even if it's an unrelated question, because I'll see it there. But what that also does is everybody else will see that question too, and everybody else will have the benefit of learning from your question. If I can't answer it, maybe there's someone in this 200,000 uh, subscription base, these 200,000 fellow gardeners. That is awesome. You might get answered by someone else in the comment section. I really appreciate that you folks help each other out in the comment section, um, and you're just such a good community. Every now and then we get a bad apple that comes in, but I just just run them off, and I just really appreciate the community here. Thank you, Carla, for reminding people to hit the like button. That really helps. How much space do you grow in your house, square feet? Um, in my house or outdoors? I mean, at my house. In my house, I don't do any growing except that's my grow light station, and it's got 4 foot wide shelf there, and I have lights that I'm going to put on this, so I'll have another thing. But outdoors, I only have. Boy, I had this calculated up and saved in my notes. I have a 4 foot wide, 3 4 foot wide garden beds that vary. They're about 20 feet long, and then there's one that's 20 feet long, then there's one that's like 24 feet long. So I don't know what that is, but that's the main beds. And then I've got a couple of 2 by 6 beds and a couple of raised metal beds, and that's it. Everything else is grown in pots. I live on a quarter of an acre suburban lot with a house taking up the majority of it, so I don't have a ton of space, but I do manage to grow a lot of plants out there, and so that's kind of my thing is I want to show people that you can grow in a small place. You can grow in a small lot. If I'm looking for a winter lettuce, Landis winter lettuce from Baker Creek is winter. I haven't grown much lettuce. I find that everything around here likes to eat my lettuce, but I might give that a try. That's one of the things I haven't grown in the winter lately. Let's see here. Microgreens, Gigi Crowley. You know what? I did some microgreens too. So yes, I have done that indoors. I grew some bean sprouts and some alfalfa sprouts, and I have the seeds to do other kind of sprouts. Like the mung bean sprouts. Those are really good, easy to grow inside. So let me scroll up and see if I'm missing anything. It's moving a little quicker than I usually can keep up with. What I like about live streams is that when I'm streaming, I don't have to sit and say hello to everybody. I could just say hello to your name. I don't have to type the at and your name. But when I'm in a live stream and someone else's stream, I feel obligated when someone says hello to me to answer them back. And so that somewhat stresses me out sometimes. Cross 3 lots to your apple tree and help themselves. Karen, I'm sorry to hear that. Wow. I've only got this is my first year my apple trees are having fruit. And every time I lose just one of them, I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna get any because the apple will the tree will reject the fruit here and there, and you gotta thin your especially your first year. And I'm like, man, I've only got 5 apples on that tree and 8 on the other tree. Will they make it? Well, we'll see, and you'll see too. Man, I can't wait for that first apple. Karen, you just got Tony's book too, huh? I was impressed. I'm actually gonna read it in detail. It's a gardening book called My First I wish I had it up here, didn't think to bring it. Um, Something about my first gardening. It's for first time gardeners. But my heavens, the information in there, I think might be a little much for a first time gardener. It certainly could overwhelm. I mean, I'm looking through the book thinking, wow, this man is an expert gardener. You're getting down to talking about cations and anions and uh, the organic chemical structures of the nutrients your plants need. You obviously don't need that information to grow a garden, but it's good to have especially if you want to know how plants actually function. And it's been pretty interesting to read. Let's see. You just got a dog. Gardens happen. Yeah, that'll take you off your game, won't it? I'll tell you a dog story. My dog Phoebe, right there. So I went out and I have some fruit tree fertilizer from Dr. Earth, and I've had this bag of fruit tree fertilizer for a long time, and it's just organic, dry, slow release. And the intent was to go and fertilize all my container fruit trees with this stuff. And so I went around, I was dusting it around on the trees, and then I went out to the apple trees and stone fruit, and they're in the ground. So I dusted those trees with some of this fruit tree fertilizer. And I turn around, and I look, and my dog is eating the fertilizer because it stinks. And I couldn't believe it. My dog constantly reminds me that she's a dog and they like nasty stuff. She likes fish emulsion too. If I mix up a batch of fish emulsion, I have to be careful that she doesn't drink it all up. So, yeah. Your first vegetable garden. That's what it's called, Oscar. That's right. Tony O'Neill. Look him up. His YouTube channel is Simplify Gardening. And well, let me see if I can get it. I'm not at my normal place, so I'm on a wobbly table, but I'm going to try to grab a link for Simplify Gardening. There it is. Go say we said hello. There's Tony's. Your cat goes nuts for bone meal for some reason. That's weird. But cats, aren't they just kind of crazy to begin with? Okay, while I've got my subscriptions pulled up, here's my neighbor. Go say hello to the African wellness mama. I see her walking down my street from time to time doing streaming to some social media platform, and I wave at her, and I think I probably interrupt her stream. Yeah, go check out my neighbor. Say I sent you, so she'll be open to a garden tour for us. I'm glad your dog doesn't like garden stuff, JB. JB, I like your comments. You're always commenting, and just wanted to tell you I appreciate you. You always comment with good quality comments, and I think sometimes you even correct me when I need correcting. Jarvis Richardson Photography. Tomatoes and a lot of your flowers are dropping and just not producing fruit. Um, what are your temperatures where you're living? Um, because tomatoes need certain temperature ranges to keep their blossoms on. And sometimes they'll drop them if they're simply not getting pollinated or the pollen is um, sterile. And pollen from tomatoes will go sterile and they won't produce for you when temperatures consistently reach in the mid 90s during the day. Some tomatoes will, but generally it's temperature related. Yeah, it could be maybe calcium nitrate, which is just a good source of nitrogen. Yeah, I appreciate YouTube comments, JB. Your dog creeps between the thorns with her mouth half open, grabs a gooseberry, closes her teeth around it, and backs straight out. That's a smart dog, Karen. That's kind of the way my dog plucks figs. She kind of eases her way up, grabs one, and then backs back down. She also, my dog also loves cabbage. And one year I caught her eating a whole head of cabbage, and she had eaten it, the whole top half of a head of green cabbage that it looked like a bowl. Yeah, she doesn't do that anymore, but if I'm harvesting cabbage and pulling leaves off, she'll get a few treats, and she takes the leaves off and chews on them for a while. Yeah, Gardens Happen has a good suggestion. If you're getting hot temperatures for a while, try Everglades tomatoes. Also, there's one called the carbon tomato, and I'm growing both of those this year, and I'll let you know how they do. That's one of the reasons I'm growing them is so we can see if they really will produce through the summer. Also, if you're looking for a good cherry tomato that still sets fruit and grows well in high heat, it's the Edox hybrid tomato from Johnny's Select Seeds, and that one grows has produced through my summers for me all the way until when I needed the beds for fall and I pulled them out. Even just letting them sprawl, they did good last year when they were sprawling in a big giant weed bed. Had more tomatoes than I knew what to do with, even though I didn't trellis them. So, Sandra, yes, if you would love, I'd love to have a copy of the painting you're doing with Phoebe. Phoebe is getting her portrait made by Sandra there. Jealous of my garden, haven't gotten to plant anything yet. Kimberly Parker, don't be jealous of my garden. Just grow something, it doesn't have to be fancy. Put something in a styrofoam cup and call it done. We can all take pride in growing something, even something small. There's a couple of gardeners who follow my channel that they only grow in containers. I think some of you said so in this chat, and that's gardening. It's not like you're not a real gardener if you don't have a plot somewhere. Folks that grow inside under lights, they're gardeners too. So Tennessee Nana, I'm sorry you just got the notice. At least you got a notice. Some folks lately on YouTube haven't been getting notices of live streams. What's a portable blueberry bush? Just in a pot, Gigi? Dry protoss. I don't know how to say that. Drip. It's probably dry protoss. I guess that's how it's said. Well, you just started with a small basil plant and now you don't have any more room. When I was a kid, my dad gave me a 2 foot by 3 foot little plot in the backyard next to our house in the shade. Hardly got any sun. He said, if you want to grow some stuff, you can grow there because I'd been wanting a garden. And I grew some lettuce there and black gumbo clay, and it actually grew. Then I grew a cactus there that we harvested in the hill country in Texas. We pulled one up at the side of the road. I brought it home and I grew it. And that grew um, for about 10 years until I was in college and we had an epic freeze in, I want to say it was 1989, and it killed my cactus. So that's true, Jason. Containers are not out of bounds. I tried to grow a blueberry bush in a container, Gigi, and I couldn't do it. It wouldn't fruit for me and it didn't look good and I couldn't keep the soil pH where it was supposed to be, and the heat finally took it away. So I decided instead of trying to grow blueberries here or a variety that is supposed to be bred to be more heat tolerant, I'll just grow a berry that actually loves it here. So that's why I got the thornless blackberries. And my goji berries are growing well. In fact, they're growing too well. I have to weed whack them back. They're so wild. They escaped the pot they were in and got through the little hole, put roots down in the ground. And when I took that pot away, actually, when a freeze knocked it back 2 years ago, it started growing back from the roots that were already in the ground. And the dead stuff that I threw in my compost pile sprouted. And so now my compost pile is choked out with goji berry plants that I need to trim back. So, yeah, that's one of those wild ones that if you let it get away, it's going to take over. How long will your determinate tomato plant produce fruit? Roelomite, I hope that's how you say it. How long will a determinate tomato plant produces fruit for a determined amount of time or for a determined set of fruit. It's predetermined how many tomatoes that plant is going to produce. It can produce one flush of fruit and be done. Some determinants produce two or three flushes of fruit, but you'll know because once you've harvested your fruit, you'll see, oh, there's no more flowers, there's no more blossoms. So one, two, three, maybe four flushes of fruit is all you're going to get from a determinate, and then you might as well just pull it up and plant something else there. Indeterminates, by their nature, grow forever until something kills them, and they produce fruit the whole time, unless they get into that threshold where it's too hot to grow fruit. And then the plant will still grow. And when the temperatures come back down in the fall, that will start fruiting again for you. So, Piper, in one of my videos, I mentioned a nursery in Pearland that has a ton of fruit trees. Yes, I was just talking about that place earlier at the beginning. Piper, it's called Joseph's Nursery. And I don't know how to tell you to get there in Pearland. It's way out over the railroad tracks and past there's a big high school out there. But I'm not familiar with that part of Pearland, and it takes me like 30 minutes to get there. But just look up Joseph's Nursery, and I'm actually going to go back there and get some fruit trees pretty soon because, yeah, like I said, they have tons and tons of fruit trees, and they have golf carts that they'll take you around in if you need to get somewhere and see a certain kind of tree. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy aphids already on the coast attacking your new starts. Craig, I've got some aphids too. I've got aphids in my apple trees in the front yard, and I don't know. I've never seen these kind of aphids. They're not so thick that they're harming the tree, and the ants are farming them. So I know that they're certainly aphids, but I need to get rid of those. They're black aphids. Yeah, that Joseph's Nursery is the one. Yeah. Can elderberry and nectarberry grow well in containers? Well, I have an elderberry that's been in a container for 5 years and it's still doing fine and it gets frozen back and comes right back. My problem is most elderberries require a pollinator that is a genetically unique, different breed or cultivar. And I don't have a pollinator nearby. So my elderberry never puts on anything. Hey, Lauren, how you doing? Thanks, I appreciate it. Lauren Paolini. I actually received seeds from her in the past. Lauren's been with us for a long time. Yeah, Tammy, you got elderberries in pots. They're thriving. Yeah, mine do fine. They just don't flower or they don't fruit because I need another one, and I haven't bothered to get another one. I had another one, but it didn't make it. Let's see here. 30% shade cloth to get through the summer. Yeah, I've just never bothered. I'll let my tomatoes just die off or I'll pull them out and put in a devoted summer crop. This year, I'm going to try to crossbreed my cowpeas. The favorite cowpeas that I've ever eaten are Purple Hull Pink Eye, the normal Southern Arkansas kind of cowpea, uh, and the gray speckled Palipy, which is an African variety that I grew back in 2009 and 2007. And those are the ones that I consistently like the most, so I'm gonna try to breed them together and see what I get, see if I can get a black gumbo cowpea grown in my own backyard. I don't know that there's a lot of people that are growing cowpeas around my area, so I think we're free from cross-contamination. So in a few years, we'll see if we can stabilize, my own variety of cowpea. That'll be kinda cool. So, cowpeas, yeah, people think cowpea. What the heck is a cowpea? It's a black-eyed pea. It's a purple pink eye. It's a zipper cream. Those are all cowpeas, and there are hundreds of varieties of cowpea that they're also excellent for growing in the middle of the heat. They'll grow in 110-degree weather. They'll grow in just about any kind of soil that you can think about. They improve the soil if you cut them back before they fruit. They're nitrogen fixers. They make great green mulch. You can eat the leaves. There's just nothing bad about a cowpea. Let's see. Yeah, I've been just washing the aphids off. Gardens happen. I haven't been spraying anything on there. And yeah, I do have a healthy supply of ladybugs flying around here that I don't want to hurt, so I don't want to spray anything. Let's see. Someone just asked about night temperatures and it scrolled up. Mildred, coming in late, but what is your last frost date? My last frost date is March the 1st. And what are my night temperatures running right now? Let me look on my phone. I actually have a little app that logs my temperatures so I can see how many chill hours I get. And I've got a little sensor. It's a sensor push sensor. Let's see. My night temperatures are looking to be about, hmm, it depends on which week you look at. Last week, we were averaging around 72. This week, we are averaging around 55 Fahrenheit. Um, Week before, 3 weeks ago, we were in the 70s and in the 50s. So we're averaging, I guess, about 65 right now at night temperatures over the last month, something like that, which has been enough for tomatoes to set fruit. So we've been up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s during the day, and now we've had a front come through that's keeping it very pleasant right now. Some vining black-eyed peas that make huge long pods. Jason, you grow some neat stuff. Lauren, what is the one thing I've never grown that's on my wish list? Hmm. Wow, I don't know. I started doing it 3 years ago. That was the apple trees. If I could grow If I could grow asparagus, I would grow asparagus, but I don't believe it will grow in zone 9A. And if it does, and I'm ignorant of that fact, somebody correct me. And I know it takes a long time to grow. I think it's a 2-year crop. But see, even if I was gonna grow that crop, I'll answer you in just a minute, Piper. Even if I was gonna grow that crop, it takes 2 years. And my garden's so small, space is at a premium. I don't know that I'd give 2 years to it. So, Piper, that app is the app that comes with a little sensor called the sensor push. And the sensor push, I've hung it under the eave in my backyard. It's a little 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch thermometer and humidity tracker that is Bluetooth enabled. And you can track your humidity and you can track your temperature over weeks, and you can export the data to a CSV table, or you can export your data to in several ways, and you can keep your data that way. It'll store data on your phone for 21 days, and you can expand the system if you're really hardcore about weather. You can expand it with like internet hubs that you can read it from anywhere. As it is now, as it comes, you can just walk by it and read it, line of sight kind of thing. But I found it useful, and you have to have it in a place where the sun's not shining on it. Otherwise, you get strange anomalies like 140 degrees at the middle of the day, and it's just because the sun's hitting it. Y'all, I'm falling way behind on chats here. We have 142 people in here right now. That's the largest I've ever had in a live stream. Um, let me try if I can. Let's see if I can get some questions answered. Crowder peas, that's a good one. But you gave it to the goats, man. I'd eat those. Yeah, I've never had, Lynn, I don't think asparagus grows here. PD is growing at an 8A. DF, well, it gets hot up in Dallas. It gets hotter in Dallas than it gets here because we got the Gulf that keeps us about 10 degrees lower than you guys in the summer. Man, I'm glad I don't live up there. Mm. There's another channel I want you to go see. East by West Farms. If you haven't followed them, they live up in north central Texas, and it's a couple of husband and wife team. She's Asian, and I think he's British, and they're living out homesteading on out in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes, here we are. His name is Chris, and I forgot what her name is because it's an Asian name I can't pronounce. But go give them a hello, and you can learn from them. They grow some interesting crops. She grows all kinds of interesting crops, and they do it unorthodox way. Like rather than going and buying potting soil to start seeds in, they make their own. Um, rather than relying on rain alone for water, they dug a pond, and not a regular pond, a unconventional pond. Yeah, I like to see gardeners who think outside the box, and they certainly do. Sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. Um, but yeah, they are very off grid, Mark. East by West farms, where they eat what they grow and they grow what they eat. So 10 asparagus plants per person in your household. That's the rule of thumb. Okay, Larry, that's a good rule of thumb. If I ever get in a place where I can grow it, I will. Thank you for the congratulations, LP. Let's see. Yeah, Craig, if your wife is Filipino, that would be a good channel to follow. And again, I love watching some of the more ethnically diverse channels. Also, climate diverse channels. Prairie Plant Girl in Saskatchewan, I watch her channel. She has like 100-day growing season because it's so blasted cold up in like zone -4. And I learned from her. And I've been watching her channel for a very long time. My neighbor Yaje, I watch her channel and she grows things like bitter melon, bitter leaf, bitter gourd. She grows weird foods that I've never heard of that then she cooks with it and it looks delicious. And it's food from her home country of Cameroon. And she is delightful to watch and listen to. So thank you, um, Scylla Erdos Kelly. Thank you. I am hitting a milestone and it's because of you folks watching my channel. So I said thank you from the bottom of my heart several times tonight, but I gotta say it again. So D, you don't grow it because you're the only one who will eat it. Will it grow? Hey, I finally got a moderator in the house. Thanks a lot, John, for showing up halfway through the show. Just like my team leader to do that, right? So, will it grow? John is my team, the head of my team, and I am involved in his. Oh, it used to be called Shed Wars. What's it called now, John? I forgot. It's homes garden and homestead. I don't know. I'm sure John will let us know. But what it is, it's a team of about 70 channels on our team and 70 channels on the other team. And I heard rumors that we've got another team now, and I haven't done my part yet. But John is my team leader, and part of what we do around the team is we can talk to each other and call one another out and kind of bust each other up. It's kind of fun. And I've I've told the whole network in a live stream that John held, and the whole global gardening and homesteading community. There it is. Sorry, John. Global gardening and homesteading community. I'll blame that forgetfulness on Phoebe driving me crazy, John. Um, I told them in a live stream that I was going to sponsor a challenge and an award, and that whoever grew the single biggest tomato of either team was going to win a $50 gift certificate to Seeds for Generations, whom I'm affiliated with. So really, won't cost me anything. It'll come out of my affiliate money. But um, yeah, it's a nice gardening community. If you want to participate next year, pay attention to Will It Grow. Go subscribe to his channel, also the channel Homestead Aquarius, because that's the other team leader that we're going to beat this year. Me and John and our team is going to beat them. And the measure is we're going to grow the most food. So I'm going to rely heavily on my citrus and kind of come in clutch at the end of the year. You're doing an edox, Kelly Lane, for your single seed challenge. That's awesome. You ought to be able to get that thing to grow about 20 feet long if you prune it to a single line, and it will have cascades of trusses of 20 tomatoes each on it, and they're so beautiful. Edox, that's a great one for the single seed challenge because it will get large. Oscar Herrera, I remember when I saw the anaerobic compost. It amazes you. Anaerobic compost. I've got that big cannon of anaerobic compost out there. and it stinks. My big blue bucket of it stopped stinking now, but I'm sure if I got down to the bottom and cleared out some of the stuff, um, and it's stirred up, I can stir up some stench. I haven't been using it much because it's a hassle for me to use when I've got so much other stuff to use on hand already. Yeah, there's a if you train it up and over your cattle panel, that would be perfect, over that tunnel. Yeah, you could just train it back and forth. Here's the deal with the edox, though, because it's a greenhouse variety, it's kind of specifically bred for greenhouse success. If you keep only 12 foliar branches on it, once you get another big foliar branch at the end of the growing tip, trim off one at the bottom and just keep that vine bare until you just have 12 foliar branches, and it will just grow forever for you. Let's see. Mrs. Jones, your seedlings are getting too big in the house. I didn't have that problem. Mine got stunted. They were in this room, and this room is on a south-facing side of my house, which you'd think would be perfect, but it got so cold. We were out of town. The air wasn't regulated very well. The light timer didn't work, and my seeds got stunted. So that contributed to my late start as well. Let's see. I'm looking for. Thank you, Drago. Rollo, do I still have any muscadine vines? You asking me? Because yes, I still have all my muscadine vines. I have 4 vines. They're going into year number 6 or 7. I think it's 6. We had a very hefty corrective prune last year that I showed. We had to correct for some timid pruning that I'd made in years before because a muscadine vine fruiting spur will get out of control, will grow much larger, and you really want them to keep around 2, 3 inches max. So I had to really prune them back. We got less fruit last year, but I still had about 45 pounds of fruit. That's also going to go toward our team. Will it grow? My muscadines are going to be about 60 to 70 pounds of fruit this year. And yes, they're growing like crazy. And I've got 3 varieties, 2 plants of cowart. I've got a fry, and I have one called a noble. So I've got a dark, almost black purple muscadine, and I have a bronze muscadine, and then the other one is a lighter purple. Yeah, very good. The freeze didn't kill it. The freeze did damage it did get some freeze scald on the bark of the main trunks, but I painted those over with IV Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard. Go buy some. Use my link below in the description for 10% off. Use the code Gumbo10. That was a perfect opportunity to go pitch my affiliate. Man, my affiliate, IV Organics. I don't know if Charles is in here. Yajay, I've been sending people your way. Thank you so much. There she is, Yaje. I've been talking about your channel and I've been talking about how you grow ethnic food, and I've been sending people your way. So there you go. Hopefully, you've got some new viewers over there. And yeah, and I was also talking about another channel that grows food that's related to their ethnic background, and that is East by West Farms. They grow Asian stuff, Chinese specifically, up in the nowhere regions of North Texas. So yeah, glad you're here, Yajay. We've always tried. I've always said I wanted to come to your garden, but we haven't got it done. So maybe we'll get that done this spring when your garden's nice and lush. So yeah, Yaje came and looked at my garden, so I need to go look at hers. What was I saying? Oh yeah, my son is in here. Hey Caleb. Um, Charles at Ivy Organics has been one of the best companies I've ever worked with in terms of affiliates, but also I actually believe in his products, and they've been really cool. And they treat their affiliates really well. They sent me and all of the affiliates a pomegranate tree, and I showed you that pomegranate tree in a recent video. And it's not looking so good yet, but soon it will. So, oh, that's an interesting pepper, just right gardening for the single seed challenge. Yeah, the African yams sold at the local African market. I'm glad they're growing for you. I had some. I had a yam, Dioscorea alata, that I got from David the Good, and it started to grow well, and it froze and hasn't come back up yet. So my true yam might not be viable anymore. Mary West Carruthers, you named my daikon radish, didn't you? You were the one that gave him the name, not Goliath, Samson. So I had this daikon radish that the seed fell into the hole in my concrete blocks, and it grew there in that little hole, and it grew so big that it filled the entire hole. And so we were going to see if it was strong enough to bust the concrete rock, but it turned out it wasn't strong enough after all. But Mary gave the name Samson to my daikon radish. See, I remember stuff. I if you've been on my channel for a while, don't think I don't know who you are when you comment. I feel a connection to people who are regular participants, and that's real special, and I appreciate it. Mary, I haven't grown daikons since, but if I grow daikons next year, which I probably will grow some, maybe I should just grow a daikon as a single seed challenge and put it in a concrete block. That would be great. In fact, I think I might do that. I'll start another single seed challenge and grow a daikon radish this fall, and hopefully we can get it to come large enough before the year is up. Let's call it Delilah. Yeah, I was going to try to come up with another name for it. I was thinking Goliath, but I don't know if it can break the block. You know what? You know what I think might help break the block is if we have it growing and it's already huge and it's all the way, there's pressure there, and then we get a huge rainfall where it just sucks up the water. I think we might be able to crack a block that way. What is the best remedy for pear trees after flowering for bugs? Mrs. Jones, I don't know. I wish I knew. What kind of bugs do you got? It's going to depend on the local kind of bugs you have. Plus, I don't grow pear trees, but they're close enough to apple trees where there might be a crossover. But I understand after flowering, um, hmm, I don't know. Again, I wish I knew. I wish I was a gardening expert, but I'll tell you if I don't know the answer, and I won't try to pull something out of thin air. Thanks, Ocean Bound. Appreciate it. Let's see. Somebody help Mrs. Jones. What's the best remedy for pear trees after flowering for bugs? There's a lot of smart folks in here. Is it possible for my in-ground fig tree to be starting to fruit? Yes, my in-ground fig tree, my Celeste, has fruit all over it right now. It's loaded with green fruit, so if it's going to fruit this year, you should see it. Depending on the variety. Celeste is a quick producer, though. Let's see. Larry, you got some green bok choy and guylan and some red Russian kale. I can't grow that stuff in the spring here. I could grow it in the spring, but as soon as it starts to get close to harvest time, it bolts. Too warm here. I grow that in the fall garden. That's good advice, JB. Find someone in your zone. Um, Finding someone in your zone is hard, and when you do, you gotta stick to them. But you can, like he says, glean from a lot of channels. Gardening basics are the same all over. Yeah, that's one of the things you'll see in gardening channels and in gardening books. Is someone will say, here's what we plant in April. Here's what we plant in June. And well, that may be true for where they are, but it might not be true for you. There's so many factors. There's so many microclimates. There's so many factors that you know, you might start a garden 2 weeks earlier, than me or 2 weeks later than me just based on, an elevation difference. It all depends. So what you really wanna make sure you do, especially if you're new to gardening, is, check with your local county extension office, your agriculture extension office, and see what they publish about your average last frost dates and about your, length of days and all that kinda stuff, and figure out when to garden at that point. I know some folks, uh, who am I trying to think of? Who did this recently? One gardener, yeah, it was Rachel. It was Rachel at Oxheart Gardening. She had a video recently, and she's like, zones don't matter as much as we think they do. And she went on to basically prove what all the things matter because she's a like a astrophysicist, PhD, from Clemson type person. So she does all the thinking, and it's true. But I still go by average last frost date because that's what I know and that's what worked for me. Some old timers just like the almanac. So more videos on growing tomatoes, particularly the single vining technique. Um, Yaje, I would do that. I just don't have my edox big enough to start doing that. I was saying earlier before you came in, I'm about almost a month behind, maybe 3 weeks to a month behind on my garden because of all kinds of factors, especially that freeze we had. And my plants aren't quite to the point where I can show how to single vine them. I do have a video that I remember doing the single vine and drop, shift, and lean method with my Edox tomatoes, but I it was just in that it was in another video, and I don't remember which video it was that I had that in. But yes, I do intend to do some videos on that pruning method. And if I remembered who I learned it from, I'd point you to their channel too, but I don't remember what commercial greenhouse grower I learned that from. Let's see. Yeah, master gardeners are a good resource in your area. Sometimes master gardeners are a little too attached to the methods and to the books and to the what's right to do, what you compost and what you can't compost. But at the same time, they're master gardeners and they've done a lot of learning. So you gotta respect that learning, and you can adjust from there. Gardner Scott is a master gardener, and but he's also not concrete attached to the orthodox methods. Let's see. I'm way behind on if I've missed your question, I'm sorry. You could repeat your question. Hopefully, I'll see it. Yeah, average last frost date is best for me. It's March the 1st for me, and that's when I start at March the 1st on the calendar. And I count back 8 weeks, and that's when I start my seeds indoors, which puts my seed starting in January. When that light stays on and those heat mats come on over there, and but 2 years ago I had to go out of town and missed my March 1st planting date. Then this year I was out of town that week as well. Plus, well, it wouldn't have worked out anyway because we had a freeze that kept temperatures a little bit too cold. Yeah, but it's still it's average, so you might get a freeze, you might get frost after your average last frost date because that's just what it is. It's an average. You also might be able to plant 2 weeks early if the weather helps you out. And so that's always the thing in your certain gardening areas. The whole community around there of gardeners is like, well, should we risk it? Are we going to put our plants out on the Houston Gardeners Facebook groups? There, everyone's always, hey, I'm going to risk it. Wish me luck. And people are like, no, I'm going to wait 2 more weeks, and it's always drama. Wolfsbane, I like strings and cages for my tomatoes. I like the strings if I'm going to single vine them, and that's what I do with this cherry tomato I was talking about called the Edox. I like cages if I'm not going to pay much attention to pruning and just give them a prune whenever it crosses my mind. I've got some pretty hairy, indeterminate tomatoes out there right now that are kind of needing a prune. But also, here's the deal with indeterminates: you don't have to prune them. You can just let them go crazy. Um, they'll produce more tomatoes for you if you just let them go and let the suckers grow. They will produce more tomatoes, but the tomatoes will be smaller. Um, and your plant will be more dense and more prone to disease because there won't be as much airflow, light won't penetrate. So if you do let them sprawl, at least thin them out and keep them open a bit. If you let them just kind of sprawl through a cage, you'll get more tomatoes. And if size isn't important to you, then that's an option. I've always been an advocate for pruning my tomato plants and keeping them tidy, but rarely does it ever work out that I stay on top of it. I did stay on top of it with my Edox single vine tomatoes. They were beautiful. They were fantastic, and I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, the urban gardener. Um, Gardening is a constant learning process, and nothing is really concrete. Experiment and try things out. Yes, indeed. That's another channel you need to be familiar with. Go check out the urban gardener. Yeah, Piper, I did that on purpose. Let's compost the wrong things. I gotta figure out how to get some composting quips into my merch when I finally do merch because, that video was pretty popular. I composted my sermon notes, bad theology books, meat, all the stuff you're not supposed to compost, it's in there. I am gonna do a some merch about the Hole Maker 5 million, and, Phoebe's Employee of the Month will be some merch. So let's see here. Romas, you use cages? Yeah, I use cages on my Romas too. There's a local Houston gardener. I forgot his name and I wish I remembered. He's a smallish channel at the moment. And if I remember his name, I'll put it in the comment section of this live stream when it gets archived. Maybe you're watching, I don't know, but he took a tomato cage and put it in the ground, and he reminds the viewers, "Hey, these tomatoes are going to be twice as tall as these cages. That's no good." So he took another cage, turned it upside down, and zip tied them together. That was pretty brilliant, I thought. And if you got to use cages and you want more height, then and I'm going to try to find his info and post it there because he deserves the credit for that. So if I do that, I I will credit him. Yeah, Craig Jacob, David the Good's Compost Everything book is excellent, and he's the one I learned composting from, basically. He composts his enemies, and everything goes in there. Yeah, will it grow? John, she is the employee of the month permanently, and there's her first one on the wall there, and the second and third ones are gonna be over there too. She is employee of the month. Bella does not rate as employee of the month as far as I'm concerned. She has a tail. She how can you be a corgi and still have your tail? So, yeah. Yeah, that was a good fun video to make was the composting video. Gardens happen. Dog poop might work as fertilizer for trees. Pathogens wouldn't compost the part you eat. I just let the dog poop compost the yard. I don't know that I'd intentionally throw it on the tree, but that's just me. I'm just squirmish that way. And I know there's probably no problem with it. I was watching some videos the other day. Who was it? Oh, it was Luke at MI Gardner did a video on biosolids and the fact that biosolids are used commercially, and basically human poop is being used as fertilizer in commercial fields, and you know it's just that way. Um, and we've been doing that for thousands of years. There's a book called Holy, SHIT. I don't want to say the word on YouTube, but that book is all about humanure and how it's been used for forever. Um, and if you think about, yeah, a humanure handbook. If you think about what you eat, if you know what you're eating, then it could be a safe option for you. But if you're taking lots of medicines and stuff, JB says biosolids have heavy metals and forever chemicals. Some of them do, but uh, the way that the procedures to purify them have been advancing in recent years, there's several different grades of biosolids, and some of they get it pretty clean. Yeah, I know, Karen. I know. My breeder did it, and we bought one from him anyway. So let's see. Yeah, animal manure compost. Let's see here. As long as they aren't constantly pooping in the same spot over and over, letting animal manure compost in place on the soil surface is the way Dad's been. Yeah, that's the way I do it. I don't pick up after my dog. I let her fertilize the yard. After all, I'm paying for the dog food. I might as well put it to use, right? Yeah. Thank you, Tammy Olson. Have a good evening. Thank you for stopping by. I'm glad you did. I hope it was enjoyable just to hang out with me tonight. It's we've been here an hour. I'll go another 10 or 15 minutes or so. No, I've never grown mushrooms, Rolomite. I haven't done that. It looks hard. My neighbor tried it in his garage, and Rachel at Oxheart Gardening Gardens is trying it, and she got some here and there, but it just doesn't look like something. I've got some fungus and mushrooms growing out in my backyard that I can't hardly get rid of, so I'm sure I could do it. I haven't tried it though. This might be something I should look into. Yeah, JB, I hear that some municipalities do give it away for free, and you got to know what you're putting in your garden. That's for sure. That's true, Jason. Green country. I always want to say green agro country or something. Green country agroforestry. Yeah, if poo killed plants, forest would have been dead a long time ago. Yeah, Phoebe is the official taster. Maggie Myrtle Beach. She's the official taster, hole inspector, seedling inspector, critter chaser. She's the official just about everything. Yeah, at let's see, what's that replying to? What days are you live besides Monday at 4 p.m.? I'm in Cyprus. Yeah, the real 1970. I don't do normal lives. I only do them when I reach a milestone. So if you like the lives, I could do more. I kind of like live streams. And I've been thinking about doing them more frequently. I don't know what you guys think. So chime in if you are for more live streams because I like them and I'll do them if you want me to. I'll check that out, Craig. Plant abundance on growing mushrooms outdoors. DC, Phoebe would be better than just about any candidate out there for president. That's for sure. And you know why she would be better? Because she wouldn't accomplish anything. She wouldn't do anything. And the less our politicians do, the better off we are. If we had gridlock in Congress, that's perfect. That's what my dad used to say too. The more gridlocked we are, they're not raising our taxes. The more gridlocked we are, the less effective a president is. They're not infringing on our rights. So yeah, Phoebe for president. I should do that as some merch. All right, more lives, more lives. I see it. More live streams. I see that. Yep. Yep. Press one for more lives. Okay. More lives. Mark Oliver, I was talking about you earlier. What was it? You said you made a comment that I mentioned. I just couldn't remember who it was. Now that I see your name, I know it was you. Yeah. Go Phoebe. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Phoebe in the Oval Office. How deep are my garden beds? Starting raised bed on top of mulch. Your videos have helped me tremendously. Compost all the bad theology. Three little heartbeats. Yes. My garden started out as deep as a concrete block is tall, which is 8 inches. I believe they're 8 inches tall. So I put my blocks on top of my lawn and I lined the middle part with cardboard. And I brought in garden mix from my local dirt yard, which wasn't that good of soil, but that's all we had. And me and my boy filled it up, and it was 8 inches deep. Well, over time, as I amend that soil and as things break down underneath and the lawn breaks down underneath, you gain the native soil. You gain that. I've got about 4 inches, 5 inches of topsoil before you hit hard clay. So you gain that in your raised bed. So I've got 8, 9, 10, about a foot deep of soil that's really, really good soil. Below that, I've got hard clay mixed with veins of sand. And so what happens over time is I've discovered the more organic material I put into my soil, the more that it breaks down and releases those chemicals and organics that seep down into the soil. And they actually chemically help break up clay. In other words, it's called flocculation. And over time, the addition of organic material along with gypsum or green sand helps to break up the clay even deeper. And what I do every year is I tilled this past year, but I try not to till. I had to till this past year because of weeds. I had to get those weeds tilled out of there. Um, but if you don't till, you build up a network of mycorrhizal fungi in your life, in your soil, and the life cycles of all the biological stuff going on in there actually helps break up the soil. And yeah, I have had really good soil all the way down to about 14 inches deep, and then I get down into clay. Thank you, Wolfsvein. Thank you so much. Beer, molasses, Epsom salt, tobacco, making a tincture for fertilizer. Have you seen that and tried? Hmm. I haven't seen it. Beer, molasses, and Epsom salt I've used in my garden. Tobacco ash I've used in my garden, but I've never made a tincture out of them. Thank you so much though for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You guys are very generous. I saw a question I wanted to hit on. Um, are your apple tree roots on rootstock that is fire blight resistant? Yes. Well, they're said to be. M111 is the majority of the rootstocks I have. M111 is not a dwarfing rootstock, but then I've also got Bud 9 for two of my trees, which is a dwarfing rootstock. And then one of my trees, my Anna, I don't know what rootstock it's on. It's whatever Ison's uses to propagate onto. And I don't remember what it was. I'd have to look. I've got a spreadsheet with all that info, but um, yeah. Thank you. I try to answer your questions if I can, Rolomite. Um, Vanita McDaniel, your property is filled dirt. Can't dig anywhere without hitting gravel and glass. It's a real problem. Yeah, that's the kind of place where you want to grow on top of your dirt, and it'll eventually amend. I mean, your plants don't care if there's gravel and glass down in there. If there's nutrition in between it, they'll put their roots down in there. Um, you just have to start a raised bed on top of that gravel, off of the fill dirt, and let your garden over the years amend that fill dirt, and it'll take what it'll make it better. You know, worm tea's good stuff. Big wave. Yeah, I would use worm tea. You talking about tea made from worm castings or worm leachate? Yeah, it's all good. Anything from vermiculture is awesome, awesome fertilizer for your yard. Your yard splits 10A and 10B. That's cool, Valerie P. You know, I'm almost on 9B. If I go down the freeway a bit toward Galveston, there's a strip of 9B down there. I have it on good authority. I can't say who yet, but they're rezoning right now. Um, there's a huge committee that's been working on rezoning us and adjusting the zones over based on the last 30 years data. That's they do it all the time. They'll take the last 30 years data and reline the zones. And the thing that my friend that is involved in this said was, you might have, like, say, zone 8, big swath of zone 8, but like in the middle of it, there's two counties that are zone 7B. And it has to do, like what I said earlier, it has to do with local variations in maybe geography. Maybe they're a little bit higher, maybe they're a little bit lower. There's something about that area that puts their 30-year averages a little bit different. So yeah, they adjust the flood zones too. Yeah, yeah. I remember when Hurricane Ike blew through in 2008. My son Samuel was just barely born, and I'm in a flood zone that we had mandatory evacuations. If you didn't evacuate, what that means in a mandatory evacuation is if this area had flooded, nobody's coming to get you because they expected you to be gone. And I live in a mandatory evacuation area for certain size hurricane events, but we didn't flood. Even in Harvey and Tropical Storm Harvey and Hurricane Harvey, where all of Houston basically was under 10 feet of water, we still didn't flood. It only came up about two-thirds of the way up the driveway. So we've been very fortunate. And I'll give you a tip. If you're ever going to look for land in flat coastal regions, get yourself a quality petrochemical gas map and look for salt domes. Salt domes are big deposits of salt underground. Oh, think about salt. You think salt is a crystal, is a rock. It is, but it's also in geologic time, over time, it's also a liquid in a sense. and it rises up like a big pimple under the earth. That's kind of gross, but that's what it does. It rises up and forms these tall columns that lift the surface area, gets pushed up a little bit by these salt domes, so that there's a barely imperceptible dome. That's why it's called a salt dome. And I live on top of a salt dome. And my dad, who is an oil and gas pump guy, he's the one who told me, Scott, when you go search for a house, get on top of a salt dome and you won't flood as easily. Sure enough, I'm about 4 feet higher, and that 4 feet makes all the difference when the average, we're averaging 40 feet above sea level here. 4 feet makes a big difference when it comes to 100-year flood events. So thank you, Iwa. I don't know how to say your last name, so I'll just say Iwa. Can I use coconut coir organic for mulching my potted tomatoes? Yes. Seems like that might be a little bit expensive unless you got a good cheap source for it. I would just use plain old shredded bark wood um, mulch. Find the cheapest mulch you can get, actually. That's what I would do. I do buy my wood mulch based on who has it cheapest. Let's see here. Thank you, Shakila Jenkins, coastal southeast Georgia. Southeast Georgia. Was I there? Yeah, I was in Savannah this past year. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you find the videos to be useful. I went to Savannah, Georgia, and here's the thing, I live in coastal Texas where it gets hot in the summer and we wonder why we live here. But I went to Savannah and it wasn't even the height of the hot season. Man, that place was a oven. It was hot. My wife and I, we both thought, this is terrible. It's the same way, like I was saying, up in the Dallas Fort Worth area. They get so hot up there, people are dropping dead. And I guess I should just be grateful that here on the coast we have the Gulf of Mexico that um, has a cooling effect. That big ocean actually does cool us a little bit. We get the trade winds and 5 to 10 degree difference. Alan, you're late. I'm just about to sign off, Alan. Alan Turpin, he's been a regular commenter here. I don't know, Rolomite. I don't know how much worm leachate should mix per gallon of water so don't burn your plants. I think it's probably about uh, 1 to 10, just like you would dilute. It's about the same as you would dilute either human urine or fetid swamp water, which is about 1 to 10, 2 parts to 10 parts water max. Um, and see how it goes and see what it does. Your plants will tell you if they get a little burn, you'll know to back off. Ocean Bound, thank you so much. Uh, Having trouble getting the hang of stone fruit pruning. Any advice? Mine are only 2 years old, peaches and apricots. I have a couple of videos on pruning those in their first and second years. So if you want to look at my playlist called Backyard Orchard Culture, um, one of the videos is about regular maintenance, and a couple of them are there about pruning. What I would do, it depends on how you're growing them. I would need to know, are you growing them small and keeping them small, or do you want them to grow to full size as full size trees? Either way, the goal is to have sunlight being able to penetrate the center of your tree, whether you're pruning for an open center or a central leader. Either way, you want to have enough branches that aren't growing back into the middle of the tree. You want to get those out of there. You want everything growing outward. And you want everything, if it's real close together, like you got a couple of branches close together, take the weakest one, get rid of it. You don't need it. Generally speaking, you just want to make sure that everything is growing out from the trunk, or if you have the goblet shape, everything is growing out and nothing is growing into the middle. Um, that's all you need to do. I wouldn't worry about, and I would do all your pruning in the dormant season unless you're trying to stunt the growth of the tree. If you want your tree to stay small, then about the middle of summer, what is it, the solstice or the equinox? I don't remember. The true middle of summer, when the days shift in their length, that's when you want to do your pruning to stunt, and you want to take off no more than a third of your tree, but chop it down to where you want it to stay, and that will help it to stunt its growth. And you don't even have to have dwarfing rootstock. So I hope that helps, ocean bound. I'll try to be more clear when I actually do my summer pruning. I've never heard of jumping worms, Mildred. That sounds terrible. We've got some bad enough we've got some bad enough pestilence around here. Let's see here. Thank you for the congrats, Shan Jag. Zone 6B. Yeah, I'll give Phoebe a pet. I got a large backlog of Phoebe pets coming for her tonight. Pet bedding at least wouldn't be sprayed with Grazon. That's true. Yeah, Grazon is awful. That stuff's still around. Hmm. What do you do for squash bugs? V squash bugs. You can, if I'm thinking properly, treat squash bugs the same as like cucumber beetles, right? Pyrethrin based stuff. If you're not just hand collecting them to keep them in yeah, I think it's either I hammered the cucumber beetles and all the other pests that were coming to my garden last year with pyrethrin. The thing with pyrethrin is that it is an organic um, insecticide derived from chrysanthemums. But the problem is they're not choosy who they kill. They'll kill your honeybees and pollinators too. So I try to avoid it. But yeah, anybody got squash bugs in numbers enough that you had to resort to some sort of a treatment, please chime in. Neem oil's never bad. That's true. Neem oil's only bad if you got blossoms on the plant because then you're going to be covering your pollen up. Hmm. Yeah, you want to keep the good bugs. Typically, if I get a bug infestation, I try to deal with them um, by hand picking, and you'll know pretty soon if you're going to need to do more than that. The only exception is if I get caterpillars, like army worms on my tomatoes, they'll decimate a tomato plant overnight. You're welcome, V. I wish I could be more helpful. But I'll use BT to kill caterpillars, and it works overnight too. It kills them pretty quick. So if you got caterpillars, caterpillars can, I mean, come through like the plague and ruin your day. So BT. Oh, squash. Are you talking about squash vine borers? The moth? Vine borers are a whole different thing. There's a squash bug and then there's a squash vine borer. And the squash vine borer can be killed by BT, especially injected into the plants. But I mean, if you've got 20 big long vines of pumpkin plant, you can't go injecting all those vines. It's just not an option. I've used spinosad. Yeah, I've used that too. Um, Spinosad's a good product. It Spinosad, pyrethrin, and BT are the three big organic insect weapons. Really, Danny at Deep South. I like Danny. He uses Dr. Earth Golden Bloom on squash to get rid of the bugs. They can't stand the smell. Interesting. I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah, squash vine borer is a BT. Yeah, BT will kill the caterpillar. Um, I'm not even bothering to grow squash. Mark Oliver, press 1 to stay on for 30 more minutes. I'll give you 15, Mark, maybe, unless I get carried away with something. Phoebe for president, maybe. We still got 120 people in the chat. You guys ready? You guys want a long one? Okay. Mark, you're always number one. Yeah, Michelle M. I actually did that a few times. Cucurbita moschata will root along the vine. Cucurbita maxima and Cucurbita pepo, not so much. But if you're growing a pumpkin and it's a Cucurbita moschata cultivar, um, Yeah, you can grow those things. I actually only got pumpkins a couple years ago because I was outpacing the vine borers because I would reroot the vine along the way, and the vine borer would drill down here and kill that part of the plant, but the roots were established here. And by the time uh, vine borer season was over, I still had some plant left and was able to mature some pumpkins. So the problem I have here is I've got the vine borer pupa already in my soil in pretty heavy numbers. In fact, I dug one up this morning, and yeah, I've got them already here, and I'm going to give it a couple years rest before I try squash in earnest again. Thank you, Rio's Family Garden. I'm glad you stopped by. I appreciate that. Dan Vance, my tomato plants are 2 feet plus, but can't go out for another 3 weeks or so. They just did real well. You have the opposite. You've got the opposite problem from me. Should I just start new ones? I don't know, Dan. If I'd try to keep them if they're 2 feet tall, but they can't go out for another three weeks. I'm assuming that's because it's still too cool outside. Maybe take half of them and plant them out and keep the rest inside and try to nurture them along. You could also prune them back a bit. You could take the 2 feet and prune them back about a foot, and they'll still grow for you. Just let one of the suckers become the new main vine if they're indeterminates. Yeah, Calabasas squash. Never before did I have pumpkin success until I grew that. I never had pumpkin success until I grew some of Johnny's seeds had a hybrid butternut squash that was supposed to be borer resistant. Well, it was borer resistant enough to get me a squash that when I cut the squash open, there was an inch and a half long borer in the squash itself. Yeah, that kind of ruins your appetite. So, yeah, Roy, that's good advice. I think go ahead and plant them out and do some more just in case. You can never. I mean, it's a packet of seeds is cheap. You can always start some seeds as insurance. Yeah, seeds are cheap and cuttings are super easy to make. I've got a whole nother lemon boy. I think it's called a whole nother lemon boy tomato because I showed how to when you're pruning tomato plants, you can take that cutting and root it. And I did that as an example on one. I've got a that plant's huge now. So I've got an extra one of those varieties. So tomatoes, yeah, it's they're easy to grow when they're leggy. You can grow them. Um, oh man, Wolf's fine. Thank you for $2 again. I actually think I saw you mention Seven Dust up there, but I forgot to answer. I don't like to use Seven Dust, but my dad grew up like almost eating the stuff. It has its place. I mean, here's the thing: if it's what you need to use to deal with your pest problem, then use it. Um, don't let people shame you or make you feel like you're not a real gardener if you're not using organically approved products. If you have to resort to a pesticide that's is going to work, resort to that pesticide. So long as you're not using it and relying on it every single week, every single month, every year, and just getting that stuff all into your system, it's fine. It works and it's sold because it works. So I wouldn't. I don't have any. I don't know that I would have a reason to use it myself, but I know that people who do use Seven Dust. Isn't it a malathion based product? I don't know what its. Well, I don't know what its active stuff is. I know that malathion used to be used by my dad on our dogs to treat for fleas, and he overdid it one time and had almost poisoned one of my dogs. So yeah, you got to be careful with that. Let's see, you harvested 10 pounds of jalapenos yesterday, half sold already, and then 3 pounds of shishito. Mark, I grew shishitos a couple years ago when they were all the rage. They were pretty good. They were all right. Thank you, Roy Soto. I appreciate that. I appreciate your super chat. That means a lot to you folks, but not only subscribe, but also invest real money and throw it my way. I appreciate that so much. Um, I have to say, I just did my federal taxes today, and I just want to say YouTube pays my federal taxes every year, so I appreciate you guys watching my videos. All your watches are going basically to the IRS. So, because I'm essentially self-employed, and a YouTuber is also self-employed, and a pastor in my circumstances considered self-employed. Um, and I don't technically work for a established church. I'm simply paid by an association. We're not an entity of the state, nor are we a nonprofit. The church I work for, although all churches are nonprofits, whether they apply for it or not. Um, we were nonprofit. We reconstituted as a non-entity. So basically, we're not an entity of the state. We are an association of people, and that association pays me. So the IRS doesn't really know what to do with somebody whose pay is regular but doesn't come with a 1099 or W-2 or any kind of form, right? I just tell them how much I make, and yeah, it and my church takes good care of my family, so we're in good shape. My YouTube channel has been very, very good for me as well. Um, I don't disclose what kind of money my YouTube channel makes for me. If I reach 500,000 subscribers, I will disclose that, but that will be so far in the future, I'll forget that I made that. You guys are gonna have to remind me. However, it makes enough that I can pay my federal income taxes, and that's good, so I appreciate you guys. You guys are actually making a difference in my life. Let's see. Phoebe can be written off. She can be guard dog, and all of her expenses can be written off. Phoebe is an expense, not a write-off, yeah. Yeah, how a pastor is paid is up to the congregation. Y'all pay yours as an employee and pay taxes and issue W-2. Yeah, it was that way for me when we were a nonprofit organization. It was a requirement that I had to be issued a W-2 or a 1099. It depends on which kind of nonprofit you are. But they paid me, but we didn't do withholding, and I still don't, I don't do any withholding, so I have to pay my quarterly estimated taxes and self-employment tax, just like when I was a freelancer. And it's all right. It works out. It means I get to keep all my money and save it up myself and get the interest off my savings rather than giving it to the IRS every paycheck, and they get to benefit off of their money. So, yeah. Hey, Rick, nice to see you here. You're late, but we'll be on for a few more minutes. I've been on since 6, and I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. Y'all ask me some more questions. Yeah. So, amen, Craig. Yeah. So, I did a video where I started some more pepper seeds, and it was a video recently about growing peppers from beginning to end. I um, had them up on this under these grow lights, but I set my heat mat too high, and I think I cooked them. They dried out and got all crispy, so we're not going to see those come to fruition. That was more of a prop anyway, to show you how to do it. I didn't have a bunch of. It wasn't necessary. Oceanbound, where's David the Good? What do you mean, where's David the Good? Where does he live these days? I don't know, what the question if you're asking where he lives in Alabama, Lower Alabama, near the Florida Panhandle. He just got himself his own property instead of leasing. How's the bee house doing? Michelle, the solitary bees were a flop. I wish they had worked because I really liked Midas Bees and the guy that sent them to me. He was very generous. I saw a couple of them. These were leaf cutter bees. They're solitary bees, and they're supposed to be helpful pollinators in your garden. Um, but my bees, I think, got attacked by everything else that lives in my backyard, and other critters have moved into the bee houses. In one of them, I have a green anole living in it, along with a red wasp nest, which I leave there. They're good predators in your garden. The other tube collections have different things living in the tubes, so they didn't do so well. I wish they had done good. I did have a company come out. I didn't have them. My neighbor called some beekeepers to come out and collect a hive that was living in the water meter hole in their yard. And I'm like, oh man, that's probably my colony that pollinates all my stuff. So The sloppy gardener, did my citrus trees have any damage from the freeze? If so, did you have parts of the tree grow new foliage and eventually die off? Um, I only had one tree in the ground that's a citrus tree, and yes, it did get damaged way back. That's Lucy the Meyer lemon tree. All my other trees I took inside because they were in pots. But yeah, it grew back from above the graft, and I've got new foliage, and it will give me fruit probably next year. This happened 2 years ago as well. It grew back to 8 feet tall within 2 years and gave us a lot of fruit. So if you can protect that if you can protect that trunk wood from the freeze, everything's going to die off, and you're going to end up having to cut it all the way back to that trunk wood. But if you can protect that trunk wood, you can keep your tree. You can grow back. And the other benefit is um, you can get in and see what you're doing to work on your tree, and almost like top working a tree, you can graft onto it other varieties. I'm going to do that next year. But yeah, I would certainly expect if you can keep the trunk of a citrus tree warm during a freeze, you can save it. More cooking and more using the food. I like to do cooking videos, Maggie Myrtle Beach. Uh, the viewers don't seem to like it that much, but I'll do them because I know that there is a core group that like the cooking videos. In fact, my making sauerkraut video has been the best performing video on my channel in January, February, and well, since about October to about February. Been the one that's been the best, and mostly by people who aren't gardeners. So sometimes, you never know. What fruit trees would you suggest beginners and keeping it dwarf? I want to do apples, but I'm afraid of picking a difficult plant to start. Apples, Piper, are not difficult if you just stay on top of the steps they require. Um, Everything in the world wants to eat an apple and wants to kill your apple tree. In that regard, you have to stay on top of them. But I'd say citrus is easy to keep small, especially in a pot. If you can grow citrus in your area, stone fruits are easy. Peaches and apricots, and there are some stone fruits that will pretty much grow in all our zones. It just depends on what variety you get. Um, Figs are super simple. If you like figs, they're probably the easiest. If you can get a fig tree and learn how to prune it, and don't fight the fig tree's natural habit. I found that fig trees will grow as a tree with a trunk, or some fig trees have a more bush habit. If your fig tree has a more bush habit, don't fight it and try to keep it a tree. Let it do what it wants to do, and yeah, it'll grow for you. They're easy. Well, that's cool. You got a Tennessee nana. You got a neighbor that's got bees down the street. That's cool. Yeah, we had bees until the other day. Now they're gone. Worms and squash fruit. They're probably squash vine borers, Sonia. Are they like cream colored segmented worms with a little brown head? If so, that's a squash vine borer. Yeah, cuttings from the trees. Have you ever just rooted a cutting from citrus? I've heard that's kind of hard to do. I know people graft cuttings with ease, but I've never been able to root a cutting from citrus. Mary West Crothers likes cooking videos with stories. I do too. I enjoy making those. I'll try to do more. I could have done one yesterday. My wife cooked the rest of our carrots that we grew in our winter garden, and I didn't do anything about them. And I made a good vegetable soup. You know what? I'll show you how to use leeks. I've got some leeks. I'll do a leek video. And my onions will be in soon. We'll do something with those. Certainly, I'll do a better pickling video with the cucumbers that are coming up now. So let's see. Plum, cherry, and nectarine this year. That sounds awesome. I wish I could grow real cherries here, Craig. The only cherry we can grow here is called a Barbados cherry. And man, the I had a friend say, "Oh, we just got a cherry tree. Go look at our cherry tree we just planted." I went out and looked at it, and they live in my area. They're church folks, and I'm like, "Oh man, that's a Barbados cherry. It's not a real cherry." And I had to tell them, but I feel bad because people around here buy these trees in the Home Depot, and they're called Southern cherry trees, but they're not cherries. They are Barbados cherries, or there's like five different names for them. They're still a good fruit. But you're not getting a cherry. It doesn't have a single pit. It's got 4 seeds in it. They're more tart than a cherry. They are the highest fruit in vitamin C, and they're good, but they're not cherries. And so I wish they wouldn't try to pull one over on us like that because we can't grow regular cherries. D, the sugar cane came up. D is asking about the sugar cane that me and my son planted at my son's house. My son no longer is on that property. Um, However, he sold the house. However, the sugar cane died in the epic freeze 2 years ago. It came up. It was very tall. We could have harvested it, but the chickens and the geese liked the sugar cane as a place to hunt for bugs. Yeah, the sugar cane grew great. It did well until we had that epic freeze, and then after that, none of it ever came back. So we would have had we would have had to go and plant again. But I mean, it was fun to grow it, and it worked. So I'm glad you remembered that. Let's see. Sluggo. Yeah, Sluggo works great for stuff, for slugs and snails. Sluggo is just iron phosphate, so it's not like you're putting anything in your garden that the garden's not going to benefit from anyway. I mean, you've got your iron, which is basically rust. You've got phosphate, which is, obviously got phosphorus. It's breakdown and it's harmless. Your dogs could eat the stuff and they'd be fine. But yeah, iron phosphate, Sluggo, and any other slug and snail killer is just iron phosphate. A royal crimson tree. So yeah, okay, folks. It's what, 7:45? Been on a while. I think I'm gonna call it a night and just give about 5 more minutes and let you guys know that I truly appreciate everything. I appreciate you watching the videos. I really appreciate you commenting on the videos. I also appreciate when you give me an idea and you'd like to see something. Don't be afraid to ask if you see something in my garden or I mention something about my garden that you say, man, I'd like to know more about that thing. Please focus more in on those cucumbers you just sowed. That you're not showing me them sprouting and growing, but I want to see them sprout and grow. Show me those. Do me a cucumber video. So please feel free to make requests. I won't always be able to do it, but I always will try. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Thank you, D. Birdwell. Thank you so much from Tampa Bay, Florida, Zone 9B. Y'all are so generous. I appreciate it. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Amy, Larry. All right, folks. I think we're just going to call it right here. Try asparagus under the grapes. Hey, that's a good idea, Craig. Because I don't do anything with that space down there, and I could give 2 years there. But I still think it gets too hot here. I'll research it for sure. All right, folks, we're going to do more live streams because that's what you've asked for, and um, you've also told me you've been writing me for merch, especially Phoebe merch. So I'll try to get that done. I've just got some creative block on how I want to style it. I might just take that employee of the month thing and just slap it on a t-shirt. Well, hey, thanks so much. You guys have a good night. I hope that your garden is doing well, and I wish you happy gardening. And thank you so much. Um, it couldn't have done any of this without all you folks. So we'll talk to you next time, and I hope you have a good evening. Good night, y'all.